not every day that you get a crime on camera, let alone the suspects in that crime committing the crime on camera.
Authorities say they walked into an illegal 8-liner business with no plans to lose, and why these illegal casinos can be hard to shut down. He was busted for dealing marijuana, and now he is on the run while law enforcement is sure he has not wandered far. And we all know traffic in Houston can be a mess. Add a hot mess to it, and it makes they say you did what? South Texas Most Wanted starts right now. On any given day, there are more than 20,000 open warrants in Bexar County alone. You can make South Texas a safer place. Make the difference. Make the call. Good evening and welcome to tonight's South Texas Most Wanted. You know, it's one of the crimes that people consider one of the worst. Sexual abuse against our children, and it landed our first fugitive on the Texas Top 10 Most Wanted list, plus a $10,000 reward if you can help find it. Benjamin Dominguez is wanted by the U.S. Marshal Service for having an active arrest warrant for allegedly failing to register as a sex offender. Back in 2001, Dominguez was sentenced to 2 years in state prison after being convicted of the charge of indecency with a 14-year-old child. Now, only months after being released from state custody, Dominguez was arrested again for indecent exposure and sent back to prison. Now, according to the Center for Sex Offender Management, this is not unusual. They say anywhere from 12 to 24% of sexual offenders will repeat the crime. Approximately 150,000 adult sex offenders are currently in state and federal prisons throughout the United States. Between 10 and 20,000 of them are released each year. We should point out that not all of those are child predators. In November of 2009, a warrant was issued for the arrest of Dominguez for failure to register as a sex offender. He is currently on the Texas Top 10 Most Wanted fugitive list, and there is a $10,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. Authorities say Dominguez has a violent criminal history and is believed to hang out mostly in North San Antonio and Universal City. If you have any information on 49-year-old Benjamin Dominguez, give us a call on our South Texas Most Wanted hotline. The number there, 210-462-1747. Again, 210-462-1747. Make the difference. Make the call.
It is a crime that is sometimes difficult to understand the motivation, injuring a disabled person. But that is exactly what Xavier Jimenez is accused of. Authorities say the 19-year-old is wanted for injury to a disabled person, robbery, and criminal mischief. Now, the state of Texas has changed the law many times over the past few years to protect the disabled and the elderly, to the point that depending on the seriousness of the abuse and the victim's ability to protect themselves, this is a crime where punishment could range from 2 years to 90 years in prison. Xavier Jimenez's last known address was in some apartments on the 5000 block of Blanco Road in central San Antonio, and that is where he likely spends his time. And if you live in the Elmendorf area, authorities want you to be on the lookout for Terry Beasley. The 34-year-old is wanted on 2 different drug charges, both in the Penalty 1 group. Now, Texas divides its drug penalties by group, and Penalty 1 is the highest because it includes the most highly addictive and abused drugs that have really no medical value. Now remember, Beasley is wanted on one of them could get him 20 years. The other could get him up to 99 years. That is certainly why Terry Beasley is likely on the run. His last known address was on Kilowatt Road in Elmendorf, and authorities believe he is still in the area. If you know anything about Terry Beasley, call our South Texas hotline at 210-462-1747. Make the difference, make the call.
As we have discussed on this show before, there are now 23 states that have legalized marijuana, and it's been a big moneymaker for them. Texas is not one of those states, so the people making money are the criminals. And authorities say that's what has our next person on our South Texas Most Wanted. Juan Huerta is wanted by U.S. Marshals for violating conditions of his supervised release, his parole. In April of 2005, Huerta was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison on charges of intent to distribute 100 kilograms of marijuana. Now, since only law enforcement insists on working on the metric system,
In case you're wondering, 100 kilograms equals to a little more than 220 pounds. That's over $1 million worth of marijuana on the street. Now that's a first-degree felony, and that is at least 20 years in prison. Now marijuana has become big business, even tourism business, in the 23 states that have legalized it. That hasn't happened in Texas, but just last year, House Bill 2165 was approved by a bipartisan committee to make marijuana use for recreational purposes legal. It had no chance. So it appears Mr. Huerta is currently out of luck. Marshals say the 44-year-old violated the conditions of his supervised release by failing to report for drug testing, failed to report to his probation officer, and absconded, yes, absconded from supervision. We are told that all of Huerta's family and friends do live here in San Antonio, so someone is likely to see him. If you do, give our South Texas Most Wanted hotline a call at 210-462-1747. Make the difference. Make the call.
Still to come, there is no legal casino gambling in Bexar County, but that really doesn't stop people. How that fact now has 2 men charged with murder. And it's a drug that a lot of people don't really talk about anymore, but it's had 1 man on the run for nearly 2 decades now. South Texas Most Wanted. We'll be right back. What are you willing to do to gamble? Where are you willing to go? What kind of danger are you prepared to put yourself into? The Bexar County Sheriff's Department has made 2 arrests over the past 2 weeks in a murder case involving an illegal gambling parlor, and they say there are many more like this out there.
It's not every day that you get a crime on camera, let alone the suspects in that crime committing the crime on camera.
An update now on a case our viewers have been up to date with since the beginning, and your tips and information may have paid off. Back on January 27th of this year, 2 men walked into a mobile home on Oak Island Drive, that's just off Loop 1604 in South Bexar County. It was a mobile home that apparently had been converted into an 8-liner game room. The 2 men were not there to play games. They were there to try and rob the place, and one of the suspects allegedly shot and killed 36-year-old Jimmy Nunez. Now, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office arrested 47-year-old Ramon Salazar, who they believe was the shooter in this case. They also arrested 34-year-old Gilberto Ibarra, who may have been covering his face but could not hide from all the cameras in this trailer.
This could have been a very difficult case to solve, but we were very fortunate because this operation had those cameras up and it captured every moment. Once we put this video out, the suspects knew that they had a limited amount of time. They instead chose to cooperate. They worked with us, they confessed to their roles in the crime, and now we have them both in custody, and we have a family that feels like justice has been served.
Now, for those of you who may not know, 8-liners are similar to Las Vegas slot machines, and according to state officials, they generate an estimated $300 million annually, but they say much of that money goes to criminal organizations or potential money laundering. And as far as tracking these places, officials say that can be difficult considering these are basically casinos on wheels.
They're in areas where they're disguised. They'll be in an old mobile home where on the outside you think it's just a rundown mobile home. Once you go inside, it looks like a Vegas casino. Lights, music, surveillance cameras, big screen TVs, prizes. It's fascinating what we've seen set up.
Both Ibarra and Salazar are charged with capital murder.
Many South Texas counties have actually legalized 8-liners as a way to generate tax revenue. That's as long as they're regulated and they don't actually pay out cash. They pay out in prizes, none of which can be worth more than $5. Good luck with that. Still to come, your tips and information are already leading to success. We're going to show you how. South Texas Most Wanted. We'll be right back.
Born in Puerto Rico, Omil Arroyo is wanted by U.S. Marshals for allegedly violating the conditions of his supervised release. 20 years ago, Arroyo was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison on charges of possession with intent to distribute crack cocaine. Now, for those of you born in the 90s, crack cocaine was a major issue in the late 70s, and 80s. It got so bad, the federal government started penalizing people busted with 1 gram of crack cocaine the exact same way they would penalize someone arrested with 100 grams of powder cocaine. Lawmakers changed much of that back in 2010. Now, whether you agree with that or not, experts say crack cocaine may have been replaced by heroin as the most popular drug of choice on the street in the past decade. The problem is, it's still around and it still makes money, which takes us back to Omil Arroyo. He served his 12 years in federal prison, then needed to serve 5 years of supervised release. That never happened. Authorities say Arroyo absconded, that's right, absconded, and has not been seen since. Marshals say Arroyo has a criminal history involving weapons charges, so they do consider him dangerous, and although Arroyo is a native of Puerto Rico, they say he did most of his drug dealing here in San Antonio, so he may have already returned to do more business. If you know anything about the location of Omil Arroyo, call our South Texas hotline at 210-462-1747. Again, that number, 210-462-1747. Make the difference. Make the call.
A leisurely ride on his skateboard did not end the way one youngster thought it would. Thanks to your tips and information, his next ride was in a much bigger vehicle. He is one of the fugitives who is no longer on the run. Kenneth Stilling had a warrant out for his arrest for possession of a controlled substance less than a gram. Now, depending on what that substance was, Stilling could be looking at 6 months of jail time or even up to 2 years. Stilling was riding his skateboard on the northeast side when he was spotted by officers who recognized him. They arrested him at the corner of Eisenhower Road and Mid-Crown. And 39-year-old Eduardo Puente is no longer a fugitive on the streets. The 39-year-old was wanted on a charge of theft of a firearm and evading arrest with a vehicle. Now, that's a real thing and could be considered a second-degree felony if the driver goes all Dukes of Hazzard, I suppose. Puente was picked up at his Southside home on Lee Street near Adams Elementary School. Your tips and information are working and making South Texas a much safer place. Make the difference, make the call. For South Texas Most Wanted, I'm Vanessa Gallegos.
If you've ever been on that drive between San Antonio and Houston, you know it can be pretty boring, lots of flat roads, no curves. But one woman decided to change that this week. Our JT Street has the very revealing story of one motorist in tonight's, and they say you did what?
As a native Texan who learned how to drive in Houston, I can tell you empirically that all Houston drivers are at least a little bit crazy. We speed, we slide in and out of traffic without using our turn signals, and we love to rubberneck. I mean, if it's going to take you pretty much an hour to get just about anywhere anyway, why not slow down and really enjoy the chaos? That's what motorists along Highway 290 did earlier this week when a woman, apparently in the middle of a mental breakdown, got out of her car, climbed on top of the cab of an 18-wheeler, and started dancing naked. Kim Kardashian's booty may have broken the information superhighway. This girl broke an actual superhighway. Motorists in both directions were backed up for miles, basically breaking their necks to try and get a glimpse of a nude woman dancing her way to internet stardom. Police aren't releasing the woman's name, but a web search for naked 18-wheeler girl revealed this image and a lot more that we can't show you on television. After a 2-hour standoff turned pants-off dance-off, police were finally able to get the woman off the big rig. She won't face any charges. In fact, she's being taken to a psychiatric facility to get some help. That's one Houston driver down, 2,159,999 to go. This is JT Street with this week's They Say You Did What?
Why is it that people who love to dance naked should never be dancing naked? Still to come, it's a program that helps fathers become real dads, and then they in turn help other fathers do the same. South Texas Most Wanted. We'll be right back.
They are the fathers, stepfathers, grandfathers, tios, and primos. Men trying to find a way to have better influence on children that they care for. So who better to learn from than other fathers? The Compadre y Compadre program is making this happen, and that makes them the South Texas Most Wanted difference maker.
There's a lot of dads that come here that what we say are broken. And what we do is we pick them up and we show them that they are not broken and that they're here and they're here for a certain reason, and that's for their child or their children. We were able to get funding with the United Way of San Antonio Bexar County, and the Children's Shelter got together and we were able to get the funding, and we started the program in 2008. And in 2008 we graduated maybe 12 dads at that time, and now we're graduating over 50 dads at every graduation. We have served over 1,200 dads since implementation.
Tell me what brought you here.
Actually, I got involved in a CPS case. I was asked to come by the court system. I came in with the program. Wasn't sure about it at first, but as I started to learn and started to get involved with the program, the curriculum, the information that they gave, it has boundless applications. I noticed that.
The program is broken down into 3 components. We have our first component, which is our Daddy Boot Camp. And the Daddy Boot Camp is the first 2 weeks of the program. In that program, you learn developmental milestones from 0 all the way to 18 years of age.
When you see these guys come through, I imagine when you have a new class coming through and it's that first Daddy Boot Camp thing, and can you sense who's going to finish and who's not?
No, because when I came in, you know, I always have an attitude of, you can't judge a book by its cover.
The next component is an evidence-based curriculum that we use, the Nurturing Fathers program, and that's 13 weeks long. In that program, the dads learn about male nurturance. They learn about discipline versus punishment. They learn about teamwork. They learn about just being a nurturing dad with their children and with their spouse or ex-spouse. And then our last component is the mentor program. This is another evidence-based curriculum. We use the Abriendo Puertas curriculum, and that curriculum is a 10-week session.
We see all types of fathers come through here. People who are just having kids. We see grandfathers. We see fathers who have older kids, are about to become grandfathers, uncles, brothers, in any type of father capacity. They work in all different fields. They come from all different backgrounds, races. Everyone, it's a brotherhood.
We have a lot of dads that come in and say 15 weeks, that is a long time. But these dads that go into the class get motivated by our parent educators. They're motivated, they're stimulated about what they're hearing, about what they're learning, and it keeps them coming back every week. We have about 58% of our dads that go into the mentor program after they graduate, which is another 10 weeks long. So a lot of dads will say that's too long, and we have a satisfaction survey at the end of the course, at the end of the 15 weeks. And one of the questions on that satisfaction survey is, what is it that the Children's Shelter and Compadre program can do to improve your stay here or the education here? And 99% of the answers that I get are, I wish it was longer.
And some see the program as a stepping stone, and others see it as, I don't need to be here, I'm a great father. But once they start to learn the information, once they start to see exactly what we're teaching, what we're encouraging, a lot of them actually jump on and go full steam ahead and finish the program, and they want to come back for more. The most important thing that I've learned here is that every relationship is valuable. And the way that you treat that relationship reflects on you as much as it reflects on the other person. A lot of people believe that relationships fall apart because of the other person, whereas sometimes we have to look within ourselves, and that's the biggest part, is be able to heal or change things within ourselves that we see, and then be able to relate to people on a deeper level.
Last year, 450 fathers and almost 1,200 children were served by the Compadre y Compadre program. Of those 450, 110 fathers came back to take the 15-week training course to serve as mentors. How amazing is that? If you know of a group or person who is making a difference in our area, we want to hear from you. Just call our hotline. This Difference Maker has been brought to you by Nacogdoches Gold and Silver Exchange. For South Texas Most Wanted, I'm Trudy Stone.
Rashad Smith, the mentor in that story, actually moved to Austin more than a year ago, but he believes in this program so much, he makes a trip to San Antonio twice a week to mentor young fathers. More South Texas Most Wanted to come.
Before we let you go, let's look over a few of our South Texas most wanted. According to U.S. Marshals, Benjamin Dominguez is wanted for failing to register as a sex offender. Back in 2001, Dominguez was sentenced to 2 years in state prison after being convicted of a charge of indecency with a 14-year-old. Only months after being released from state custody, Dominguez was arrested again for indecent exposure. He was sent back to prison. When he was out on bail, he made a run for it. He is currently on the Texas Top 10 Most Wanted Fugitive list, and there is a $10,000 reward leading to his arrest. Juan Huerta is wanted for violating conditions of his supervised release. Huerta was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison on charges of intent to distribute 100 kilograms of marijuana. That is roughly over $1 million worth of marijuana on the street. Authorities say all his friends, all his family, they're here in the San Antonio area, so they expect to find him soon. And Omil Arroyo is wanted for violating conditions of his release from almost 20 years ago. Arroyo did 12 years on charges of possession with intent to distribute crack cocaine. He did that time, but then needed to do 5 years of supervised release. Apparently that was too much. Arroyo is a native of Puerto Rico, but authorities say all his customers and his connections are here in the San Antonio area, so he is likely to come back. If you have any information about these suspects, give us a call on our South Texas Most Wanted hotline at 210-462-1747. Again, 210-462-1747, or contact our South Texas Most Wanted Facebook page.
Well, that's it tonight. As always, thank you for staying up late with us. Make sure you check out our South Texas Most Wanted Facebook page so you can catch some clips from previous episodes. From all of us here at South Texas Most Wanted, have a good night.